They thought she was just another struggling waitress, barely making ends meet, barely educated, barely worth noticing. When she hesitated at the menu, they laughed. "Of course she can't read it, it's in French," one whispered, loud enough for her to hear. The billionaire at the table didn't even look at her. But what he didn't know was that she wasn't just listening. She was preparing. And when she finally opened her mouth, what she said, and how she said it, would leave the entire restaurant in stunned silence. Because sometimes, the people you overlook are the ones who know exactly how to change the room. Monique never planned on being invisible. She once walked through galleries in Paris, correcting tourists' French for fun. She had dreams, education, a passport filled with stamps, and a voice fluent in 4 languages. But after her mother fell ill back home in Georgia, dreams were folded away like old postcards. Bills mounted, and a job, any job, was no longer beneath her. So there she was, working double shifts at a high-end French restaurant, where most patrons didn't even look her in the eye. To them, she was just the black waitress who brought their wine, cleared their plates, and smiled too politely. The accent on the menu? They assumed she couldn't read it. Her silence? Interpreted as ignorance. That night, a billionaire and his entourage walked in, suited, loud, full of money and judgment. They took the best table. Didn't ask. Just expected. Monique approached with practiced grace, but her heart tightened. One man smirked as she glanced at the menu. "Come on, help her out, she clearly can't read French," he laughed. His voice was sharp. Dismissive. She stood still for a moment. Not because she didn't understand, but because she was deciding whether this was the night she stayed silent, or the night everything changed. In her hand, the pen trembled. Not from fear. From power restrained. Because Monique knew something they didn't. And in moments, she would let it speak for her. Monique placed the menus on the table gently, but the men barely noticed. Their conversation was a cocktail of arrogance and mockery. Real estate deals, offshore accounts, private jets, and in between, casual jabs about service quality. "Bet she doesn't even know what escargot is," one of them snorted, glancing at Monique with the smirk of a man used to demeaning others for sport. Another waved his hand dismissively. "Just bring us some wine." "French. Expensive. You'll figure it out." Monique nodded without a word, retreating to the bar. She knew every wine on the list. She could pronounce each one with native-level fluency. But she said nothing yet. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. From the back of the restaurant, she could still hear them. "God, the help's getting slower these days," the leader muttered. Leonard Kane, billionaire tech mogul, known for his charm on camera and cruelty off it. She returned with the wine and stood quietly as Kane grabbed the bottle from her hands, pretending to inspect it. "Hope this isn't the wrong one," he muttered, not even looking up. "If you believe in justice, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that matters. We don't want a lawsuit on your hands, sweetheart." That word. Sweetheart. Laced with condescension, dipped in venom. The others laughed. The joke wasn't funny. But the power was the punchline. Then came the real test. "Hey," one of them said, waving the menu. "How do you pronounce this dish?" "It's French, right? Let's see if she knows." He passed the menu to Monique like a dare. The others leaned in, ready to laugh. They expected a stammer, maybe a clumsy guess. Anything to confirm the story they had already written in their minds: she didn't belong here. Monique looked at the menu. Then at each of them. Slowly. Steadily. She could feel her chest tightening, not with fear, but with clarity. She had been through too much. Sacrificed too much. Been silent for too long. This wasn't just about a menu anymore. It was about every time someone talked over her. Every time someone assumed she was less. Every time her skin made her invisible, or worse, a target. She took a deep breath. The air in the room shifted. And then, she began to speak. But not in English. Not with hesitation. With confidence. With mastery. With perfect, Parisian-accented French. She pronounced the entire menu, flawlessly. Then added the regional origins of each dish. The correct wine pairings. The chef's personal preferences. All in the native tongue. The table fell silent. Forks hovered mid-air. Mouths didn't know whether to close or gape. Even the billionaire, Leonard Kane, who had barely glanced at her before, looked up, eyes wide, pride crumbling. But Monique wasn't finished yet. She turned to him and asked, again in French. Would you prefer the Chateauneuf du Pape with the duck confit, sir? Or shall I recommend something that better suits your palate? He didn't answer. Because for the first time that evening, he had nothing to say. The room was frozen. What began as mockery had turned into a masterclass. Monique didn't just speak French, she owned it. Her accent, flawless. Her presence, commanding. Leonard Kane, once smug and dismissive, now stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time, not as a waitress, not as someone beneath him, but as someone who had just shattered every stereotype he leaned on to feel powerful. He cleared his throat, trying to recover. You've studied abroad? He asked, quieter now. Monique didn't flinch. Sorbonne. Top of my class. I came back home for family. Her voice was calm but cutting. Now I serve people like you, and get reminded of everything this country chooses not to see. He blinked, embarrassed. The table of executives avoided her gaze. Their laughter had died hours ago in those few perfect syllables. Monique didn't wait for an apology. She didn't need one. She turned, walked away, and let the silence speak louder than any tip ever could. For once, they were the ones who felt small. Monique finished her shift like any other, no applause, no headlines, no justice handed out. But something had shifted. Not in her. In them. The men who once laughed left quietly. Leonard Kane, the billionaire, dropped a large tip, out of guilt, not generosity. But Monique didn't even glance at it. She didn't need money to prove her worth. That night, the staff whispered in awe. One waitress with perfect French had done what no lawsuit, protest, or headline could. She made powerful men confront their ignorance, with elegance. Monique walked home with her head high. Not because she put them in their place, but because she never left hers. Some stories don't end with a bang. They end with a lesson. And the next time someone underestimates the woman holding the menu, they might just choke on the truth.